Good evening, Professor Forbes. We'll get started in just a few more minutes. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
Good evening, Mr. Vinia. Good to see you. So we're going to wait a few more minutes and we'll get started. Good evening, good evening, welcome. We'll get started in just a few more minutes. Good to see everybody. Hello, Miss Crawford. It's good to see you this evening.
Everyone.
I think I'll wait till 6:05 and then we'll get started. Wonder where our usual crew is this evening. Maybe they'll get here in a few minutes. But we'll wait 3 more minutes and we'll get started anyway because we want to honor your time. Good evening, Ms. Cruz. It's good to see you this evening.
Good to see you too. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So we're waiting a few more minutes. We have a small amount of students this evening. We normally have between about 12 to 15, So maybe they'll come in after a little while, but we will get started at 6:05 so that we can get you out on time. And thanks all of you that are showing up. You're learning something, and we are very happy to be able to give you information that you need to help you to become more successful students at Broward College and beyond. Before we get started, Ms. Crawford and Ms. Cruz, do you have anything that you'd like to say to the students before we get started?
Nothing. We have no announcements right now. We're good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, Kathy. So it is so good to see you here this evening, and welcome to another wonderful workshop that is going to help you in your college journey. Today, we're going to talk to you about reading for college success. I know it's probably not the most like fun topic, but I'll tell you something. You learn to do this well, it's going to open a brand new world for you as it comes to your college reading, your college success, being able to interpret your textbooks, your reading materials, and the like. So this evening, I'm joined with a guest speaker who I will introduce to you in a few minutes. Professor Maureen Forbes, who is a colleague and a reading specialist and somebody that you're going to get a lot of good stuff from. And I'd like to also introduce you to the team. It's myself and Kyle Camacho, who is working on the slides in the background. So Professor Forbes, when you need to say next, then he'll just click for you. So this way you don't have to worry about the slides. So next slide, please, as we begin. So as usual, I tell you the agenda. So by the end of this workshop, you will be able to identify ways of reading your college books and materials much more better, much more effectively. And you'll be able to understand effective techniques. And you're going to get some techniques and tips this evening for college reading. And then finally, you'll be able to identify strategies for effective reading for college success. Next slide, please. So here's the normal question that we ask you, and you can put, of course, post in the chat, or please open your mic so we can hear your wonderful voices. Have you ever been frustrated when reading textbooks or materials in college? Does that sound like you?
That's me right now. I'll tell you that much.
Well, thank you. See, even your counselors have that. It's not just you guys, you students, it's also the counselors. Whenever you're in college and you have to read, have you ever seen some of those textbooks, especially if you're in the health science majors and you see these massive textbooks? And I'm sure if you're like me, you think to yourself, how am I ever going to get through that material? And so Davinia says, absolutely. And so anyone else in the chat or open your mic, have you ever been frustrated when you had to read your textbooks, your ebooks, or any other kind of college material? Case study textbooks are the worst. I hear you. All right. I get you. Thank you for that. Okay, so now for those of you who are here today, if you'll put in the chat, if you don't really want to open your mics, and that's understandable. But if you do, I'd love to hear your voices. What would you like to get out of this workshop this evening, guys? What's your expectations of this workshop? What would you like to take away?
I would say just some practical tips and tricks as to how to navigate and tackle reading when it comes to those textbooks.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm sure that Professor Forbes is going to provide you with that. And Alan says, I need better shortcuts. I hear you. I hear you. And you will get some of those things as well. Simon, what about you? In the chat, maybe, what would you like to get out of the workshop? You certainly don't have to open your mic. But is there anything? Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Simon.
I don't mind speaking.
Sure.
Well, I just hope that as kind of like we have a better understanding of the content of the textbook, as well as being able to just kind of like just carefully but yet effectively analyze the text that I need to study, whether that's for like an upcoming quiz or like the teacher says like the material side, because we're going to discuss it in class. So if she picks on you, you can actually answer that question at ease.
Got it. Got it. So it's about being able to read the material well enough that if a professor not necessarily picks on you, but calls on you, maybe you'll be prepared. Am I saying that right, Simon?
Yeah, look, when I say picks on you, I mean like no, she just need to answer a question.
I know.
I meant like that,
I was teasing you. All right, so good. I think that you're going to get most of those things answered this evening. So we'll move on to the next slide, and thank you for answering those questions. So there are strategies that you can use to help you read textbooks and materials. If you think that you have to open the book, start reading from the beginning, read every word, really, we're going to show you a much better way this evening. All right, so next slide, please. So we're going to discuss some of the best ways of reading college material. Now, we know that there's the good old-fashioned paper textbook. Then there's the new ebook, and then there's other kinds of materials, maybe materials you get from the library, or materials that you've found through your sources. And next week, we're going to talk a lot about how you find sources. But you may have gone to some library websites, or many of you, of course, go to Google and find information. But understanding how to read this information is important. So let me ask you this, and all can answer. Do you prefer paper textbooks or electronic textbooks? Which do you prefer, and why?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you can go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Simon. Thank you. I personally prefer the paper books. I just like physical. I want to be able to touch it, hold it, highlight and write in it. Okay, I'm saying that, but at the same time, the ebooks is convenient, like because you don't have to lug it around, and there's that find feature as well. So if I'm looking for like a specific word, it's great to just be able to Control F and like find what it is. So okay, I guess I like both. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it.
I got you. And I understand ebooks. And Samara says, I like ebooks because you can search through them easier. And ebooks are kind of the way that I think we're going to go in the future, for better or worse. I do hope that they get a little bit more easy to negotiate, especially when you're in a class. Don't worry about it, Renee. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem at all. Understood. So our Mr. Dr. Singletary says that he prefers paper books. What about Simon? You were going to say something.
I was going to say that I say both books, both kinds of resources, reading material have their benefits, but I say I like paper books because the fact that it's like you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about like refreshing the page in case like the school website logs you out, and you can always just kind of like easily access the book. You know what I mean? Because I feel
Yes.
like sometimes, if you have eye difficulties or eye issues, with an ebook, sure you can zoom it out, but it's like some people may experience some technical difficulties with that book.
I got you. I hear you. Alan says you can also highlight in an ebook, yes? You can highlight in an ebook and share it with friends as well. When you get the hang of an ebook, I find them to be very handy. But the bottom line is that you do have to get the hang of them, and not all of them are as robust as others. Meaning that what I mean by that is some of them are really easy to negotiate and find, and some are quite difficult. So I think we still have a little ways to go with ebooks, but I do think, guys, that you should prepare that the wave of the future is that paper books are going to become less and less common in the classroom, I believe. What do you think, Professor Forbes?
I think you're right. The ease of ebooks and convenience, as Daviana said, the fact that you can highlight and zoom, I think it was Simon who mentioned that zooming feature and sharing with friends. I don't know about the costs yet. That might be something to consider because to create an ebook, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. Even with publishing physical textbooks, there is a lot that goes into it as well, all the editing and all this kind of stuff. So I am still one of those people who prefers a physical book. I don't mind reading novels and poetry, things like that in an ebook format though. But in terms of academic material, I am still a hands-on, touchy-feely, highlight, underline, write in the margin with my own hand type of person. But I do know that there are many ebooks that do also allow those features. Even PDFs allow you to highlight and write in the margins and things like that.
Before I move on, I want to say this, and I see that Renee said, taking notes on every paragraph and any definition you don't know, looking it up. So ebooks are cheaper and to rent also. Yeah, I found that that is the case. Now, what I would say is that ebook, oh, I've lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it. But Samara said something that I thought was interesting because she said what I kind of feel. You miss that walking into Barnes and Noble, roaming the aisles, seeing the little kiddies sitting down reading in the evenings. Remember that?
Yeah,
Where they would have story time, and I'm sure they still have story time in other places. But that whole Barnes and Noble feel, I would go get a cup of chamomile and sit, you know, in the cafe part of Barnes and Noble. That is missing, you know, that kind of slower pace. Anyway, and it's sad we won't have as much paper books in the future. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
May I just add something?
Yes.
You know, I don't think that ebooks will replace the traditional published books. I think that, like everything else, it's another option for us. We have many options in this country and around the world. I mean, computers, in a sense, they didn't replace typing. I mean, we're still typing. Typewriters themselves are gone by the wayside, but we still type, we still print. So it's just another option for us, and different people will have different preferences for the physical text or for the electronic version.
Yeah, yeah. I do agree that they won't be gone completely, but I do see, you know, that they are becoming less. So let's move on. Next slide. So what we're going to do now is show you a video about something called the SQ3R reading method. And what we're going to do for the rest of the time is give you the tips and tricks that you can use when you decide to use this particular method. And we both think, both Professor Forbes and I think it's a very, very good method. I can tell you from my own personal experience that maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago when I learned this method, it opened up a brand new world in terms of understanding how to read textbooks. So we're going to watch this video.
SQ3R is a great reading and note-taking strategy. Why do you need a reading strategy? Well, how many times have you picked up a textbook, read for a while, and realized that you've not remembered anything you just read? Using the SQ3R method helps you remember what you read so you can get wonderful grades and do well in all your classes that test you about information that you've read. You should use this method for any textbook reading and for any online or print articles that you read or use for research in any of your classes. The S is for skim. Before you curl up with a blankie and hot cocoa to read, take a moment to skim over the entire text. Skim means to look something over at a bird's eye view. Look at main headings, bolded words, and any pictures or diagrams. This will give you an idea of what the article will be about. This also helps you know what to expect and hopefully will trigger some background information you might already know about the topic. The next step is to ask questions. Asking questions helps you pay attention better to even the most boring reading assignment because you are essentially on a mission to answer the questions you have asked yourself. If we have a purpose, we are more purposeful. You should write down any questions you have and turn headings into questions that you must answer by reading. The first R in the 3 R's is to read. You're now going to answer the list of questions you've created by actually reading the text. The next R is to recite. In this case, it is not only okay to talk to yourself, but actually encouraged. Take notes on paper as you read and say the answers to your questions out loud if not too many people are around. Put the answers to the questions you've answered or the important points you've discovered from the reading into your own words. When you put something into your own words, whether in writing or by talking to yourself, you're more likely to remember it later. The final R and the final step in the process is to review. Read through your notes, perhaps highlight or even take additional notes on your notes. Have you ever read through your notes later and realized you have no idea what you meant when you wrote them? Doing a quick review while the reading is fresh in your mind to add a few additional details will prevent that from happening. This is also a fantastic time to talk with someone else about what you've read. Bring it up with a classmate who also had to do the same reading, or bring it up at the dinner table. Your parents will be thrilled when you have something to share when they ask you, "What did you do at school today?" So that is the SQ3R reading method. The more you practice it, the better at it you will become, and the more you will remember when you read.
So there you have it. And now, without further ado, next slide, please. I want to welcome formally Professor Maureen Forbes, a colleague for many years. And Professor Forbes comes to you with a wealth of experience. As an avid reader and writer, she's published short stories and articles in various magazines. She has taught reading and writing at Broward College for 16 years now. Professor Forbes is working on a forthcoming book about the English language. Let's welcome Professor Forbes this evening. Thank her. Let's thank her for giving us her time. And she's going to take it from here.
All right, I'll take it away. Thank you, Dr. Hargret. And thank you everyone for being here this evening. I appreciate your presence and your openness, your willingness to learn about how to better understand academic texts. So the thing is, and I'm sure you guys have seen this before, noticed this, that a novel and a magazine and let's say your holy book, whatever your religious preferences or your philosophical preferences are, they are all that type of reading, all that reading material is very, very different from a textbook. Would you all agree? Just show me a hand or something, right? So definitely this is a very different type of reading. And the purposes, the author's purposes for writing those books are all different as well. Now, I want to ask you, there are generally 3 key categories for writing. Does anybody know what those 3 key categories are, or maybe one of those categories or reasons for writing? Anybody?
writing to explain, for instance?
Okay, so yes, definitely authors write to explain. And I'm going to tell you that generally that category is called to inform. So when you write to inform, or when a writer writes to inform, he, she, they, one of the things they're doing is to explain something. Because if they don't explain it, how will you understand it, right? And so I'm seeing here persuading and entertaining. You guys are absolutely right. That's Alan, Renee, Daviana has all the answers. Thank you, Ilana. Thank you guys. So yes, the three key purposes for writing are to inform, explain, and educate falls under that heading. There are other synonyms as well. And then you have to persuade. When you persuade someone, you try to convince them, right, of something. And then when you entertain, you want people to enjoy what you have written. You want them to maybe laugh and to maybe think of a time when they were in a similar situation, something like that, that they can relate to. So anyway, those are the three key reasons. So let's take a textbook, because we're here specifically to talk about academic reading and understanding that material. When an author writes a textbook, or authors, because sometimes there's so many authors' names, but when they write a textbook, they want to inform us. They want to teach us. Our job, and I'm including myself as a student here, our job is to learn. But how do we go about best understanding that material, retaining that information? So those are some of the things that we probably struggle with, right? So let's see, there was something in the chat here. Yeah, we had a lot of writing in FCAT that we had to write yes, absolutely, in middle school. Yeah, and I have a middle schooler right now. Yeah, and yeah, these days it's the FSA, absolutely. So there are many different ways to read and understand a textbook, but one technique I will talk to you about, as was shown in the video today, is the SQ3R method. So as you saw in the video, when the S, I should say, stands for surveying and skimming. Both of those, depending on the textbook. Thank you. Depending on the textbook,
Next
I'm in in a different mode here.
Yeah.
So yeah, the S stands for surveying, and some videos and textbooks also call that skimming, right? And how many of you have seen a surveyor out on the streets? He or she is wearing maybe the orange vest, and anybody, have you seen that person, or have you yourself been one? Anybody?
It wasn't recent, but when I used to live in Sunrise,
Yeah,
one day we went to Publix,
yeah.
and there was someone who was trying to get enough people to sign his petition so he could run for office in Sunrise.
Okay, so that is one type of surveyor as well. He or she, they survey the public to get the public's opinion about a particular topic. You know, I don't know, what roads in the areas need fixing, for example. You know, and there are many things that they could take a survey or a poll about. And then there are the road workers who maybe they're kinds of engineers. They're gonna put up a building or build a new roadway through a certain area. And they come around with these tripods and things that look like cameras. I'm sorry, I don't know what they're called, survey equipment. and they, you know, they do all this measuring, and they look through the lens, and they measure and they check distances. And so what they're doing is what you should be doing in reading. You are looking ahead before you actually do that deep dive into the reading. You are surveying, you are skimming. The video says that in your skimming, in your survey, you're going to look at the headings. What do the headings say? Sometimes the entire chapter has a title, and then there are different sections of that chapter that have their own subheadings or subtopics as well. So you want to look at those things in the survey or skimming method, right? You want to look at any graphics that are there. By graphics, I'm referring to pictures, graphs, charts, things of that nature. Anything that looks like and it was created by a camera or by an artist. You look at those types of things. Another thing you want to do when you're surveying is you want to, when you want to look ahead to see if the author has asked you any questions. Sometimes the author asks questions at the beginning of the chapter. Sometimes the questions are in the margins of the text. Other times, there are a number of questions at the end of the chapter. But no matter where the author places the questions, you can scan ahead, skim, survey ahead to those areas and maybe write down those questions, or maybe put a little star or something next to the ones that appeal to you. Those are other things that you can do. Going back to looking at the topics and titles for just a moment, sometimes the author uses different colors for different topics or subtopics, and sometimes they use different font styles, like they might italicize certain topics or words within a paragraph. And so you want to look ahead for all those types of things, anything that looks different than the regular font in the reading. Are there any questions so far about what I've said? So all of those things are part of the previewing, surveying, skimming before you do that deep dive into the actual reading. And guys, let me tell you, it's worth it to take that extra 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Well, it really depends on the length of the chapter or the number of pages that you have to read, but it's really worth your time to give yourself a little background information before you do that deep dive and really settle into the reading, right? If you can imagine this, let's say that, because these are the names I can see on my screen, I'm gonna say, let's say that Daviana, she grew up in a household where her parents are both musical. This is just an example. So Daviana has grown up from the time she was in the womb. Her mom would sing to her, maybe even her dad would sing, and they both play instruments. Both parents play instruments, musical household, right? And so Daviana is surrounded by family and friends coming over, and they have some time around the piano or guitar, whatever the instruments are. And she, at an early age, decided, I want to be some kind of musician. I want to do something with music. Then the next person I see here, let's say Samara. Samara decides that in high school, she had a really dynamic speaker who was a musician, who came and spoke to the class and involved the students in playing some kind of musical instruments. Maybe that speaker brought the instruments in, or maybe that speaker taught the students how to use their pens, their pencils, their desks, their hands and feet, their mouths as instruments. So she, at that moment, also decided, I want to do something in music. So here we have Daviana and Samara. They are now in college, and they end up in the same music class, first year music class. So for the most part, the only exposure that Samara has had to the music was that time that that speaker came to class and the music that she has listened to. And then Daviana, however, from birth, from pre-birth, she has been exposed to music. The instructor in the class now begins to ask questions and share certain information. Which one of these two young ladies will have a better understanding of the terminology and the information that the instructor is discussing. Which one do you think? And anybody can chime in, raise a hand, or just open your mic and speak. Do you think that Daviana or Samara would have a better understanding? Who has more prior knowledge? So Daviana, I think you're saying you, definitely, right? Because she has had that experience since birth. How ironic, right? But yeah, definitely the person who has been exposed to it for a much longer period of time, she's probably had the instruments at home, music books at home, family and friends. Yeah, definitely. The point I want to make, though, is that she has more prior knowledge. And by prior knowledge, I'm talking about information that she knew about before arriving in class. Certainly, Samara has also had some exposure, but Daviana's experience and exposure is more. And so her understanding will be deeper at that time. Right? But of course, Samara is going to say to herself, well, I'm going to dig right into this and I'm going to learn this the best I can because the interest is there. So yeah, with surveying, you're looking also at the table of contents. Next slide. But all those things, you are looking at all the different print and all the graphics and all this kind of thing. So from there, let's move on to questioning. So maybe now it's the next slide. So we move on to questioning.
Next slide, Kyle.
And in questioning, while that's coming up, in questioning, you are doing this thing where you're asking questions. Guys, you are using your critical thinking skills. As mentioned in the video, perhaps you see a title or a topic of a chapter, and you take that topic and you turn it into a question. So, for example, here is an index card. And let's say the topic is the effects of carbon dioxide. Let's say you're in some kind of science course. And the topic of that chapter is the effects of carbon dioxide. You take those same words, you rearrange them into a question. So you use your curiosity. What are the effects of carbon dioxide? What would be another question you could ask if this is the title? What would be another question you could ask, guys? Well, I'll give you a moment. What would be another question you could ask based on this title? Maybe you don't know what carbon dioxide is yet, and you could ask, what is carbon dioxide? Or how is carbon dioxide created? Right? Again, excuse me. Again, using your critical thinking skills, you would ask those types of questions. So again, with questioning, you're turning the title into questions. You're also looking at the questions, I mentioned this before, you're looking at the questions that the author has provided if they have done so. All right, so then from there, we want to go on to reading. Now remember, there are 3 R's. There are 3 R's. Now, the first R is to read. The first of the 3 R's is to read. So prior to this deep dive into the reading, before this, remember you have skimmed and scanned, or surveyed, I should say. You have done the survey, right? And then you have asked yourselves some questions, and now you are ready to read. So let me say a few things about reading. When you're going to read, ladies and gentlemen, it is really important to know what kind of student you are, know what kind of reader you are. There are people who say that they can have their headsets on and they can listen to some really relaxing music to them, because everyone is a different type of student. So there's some people who will read with maybe some lo-fi music on, or some jazz, or different kinds of music. If you are a music reader, a musical reader, I highly suggest that the music not have lyrics, because that can take your attention away from the reading that you need to do. Then there are readers who need a quiet space. And if you find that reading at home is not a quiet space for you, perhaps you need to go to the library and engage in your reading there, right? Then there are people who are more awake and aware, let's say in the morning or midday or at night. So you have to know what type of reader you are, what time is best for you to read and truly comprehend the material, and then what time of day works best for you and your studying, right? So you have to look at all these things. Also with your reading, as you see here before you, you're gonna be reading actively. Think back to the questions that you wrote down, or that were written for you, or that you put that little star beside, because those were the questions that you really were curious about finding out those answers to. So what points did you raise about the headings? Were there any words in italics or boldface or underlined even, that registered with you? And then as you read, you want to write down the answers to those questions. You can do so in the margin of your book. Yusuf, did you have a question?
No, I'm so sorry. I'm 40 minutes late, man. Work
It's
slammed me
okay.
today. I haven't had a minute to breathe this week.
It's fine. I totally understand. We all have days and weeks like that.
My eyes are so heavy right now. I'm fighting to stay awake. But did I miss any important information from reading and writing? Because I'm actually in reading and writing class, and I'm doing great. But there's two things I'm really struggling with in the class.
I understand. Well, here's the thing, Yusuf. There are a couple of things I noticed. Thing number one, I noticed that you're driving. And so I don't want you to be driving and looking at the screen. So that's one thing. So I'm going to ask you to listen in and not watch the screen. And then perhaps Professor Hargret might be sharing the video.
We'll share the video.
Yes.
And we share the presentation, Yusuf.
Okay.
So you'll have the video.
Okay. I just got home, so
okay, great.
I'm in my lot, so.
Okay.
So we have just a few more minutes left, so we're going to get through the rest of it, and you'll be able to see it again, Yusuf. It's great to see you this evening.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great.
I've been up for 3 days straight.
Yeah. All righty. So continue, Professor.
Okay. All right. So in your very active reading, notice that the information doesn't just go in through your eyes and, I don't know, dissipate through the back of your head. Just doesn't go away. There are things that you have to do, because this is active reading, critical reading, and critical thinking. So when you're reading, you want to interact with the text. Write down your own questions. Answer the questions you asked earlier, or those that the author asked. So again, you're interacting with the text. Annotating or some kind of note-taking will come into play here. But for the most part, you're reading to grasp meaning at this point, right? So you've gone beyond the surveying and skimming. You've gone beyond the questioning, and now you're diving into the reading with the intention of finding answers. Okay, so now let's go to that next slide. Next slide.
We're on the recite now, yes.
Oh, recite, there we are.
Yes. Yes.
So now the second R, ladies and gentlemen, is reciting. The first one was read. The second one is recite. So after you have read a topic or a portion of text, you need to stop. Answer those questions that you wrote down. I think I already addressed this. So yeah, answer those questions that you wrote down. So I think another key thing here is that you're not reading straight. So one of the things that one of your classmates just said is that he's been up for 3 days straight. If your instructor comes into class and says, okay, for homework, I need you to read chapters 1 through 3 and chapter 6. And then all 3 of those chapters are, 30, 40, 50 pages or more. Please do not plan to read it all in one sitting. Because that information may not stay with you. So you want to chunk up your reading. That's part of active reading as well. Maybe today you're going to read the first 15 pages. It depends on your time. Or maybe today you're going to read all of chapter 1. But you're going to chunk up your reading according to the time that you have available. Right? So that's your reciting. Now in reciting, you're also going to repeat the information, say aloud the information to yourself. So, and listen as you say this information to get a sense of whether or not you truly understand what you have said. Right? So you recite, you speak aloud, you say that information so that you can hear it. The third R here is to review. Notice it says, ladies and gentlemen, review often, not every once in a while. And it doesn't say, just read it once and never look back. It says often. Now I know we all have a different idea of often, but I'm going to propose maybe 3 to 5 times a week, look at that information again. So you look at that information with purpose, purposefully look at the information immediately after you have read it, or after maybe you guys have read it in class, and periodically from time to time for days and weeks after you have read it initially. So guys, you're going to reread your notes, review the preface of the textbook, look at the heading again, look at the graphics again, and look at the chapter summary. Chapter summaries are always helpful. Have others in your household or friends, classmates test you, and you can hand them the questions that maybe these questions were bothering you. Have them test you, or give them the pages and have them test you and respond as to whether or not you got the questions right. And again, use our friends' flashcards. They come in different sizes, different colors, and maybe for different chapters of the book, you could use a pink one or yellow one or white one or different sizes. So those are really helpful. I also use Post-it notes. Most of my textbooks happen to be at work, but here's a textbook, and this one just has a couple because I've just started, but I use Post-it notes to mark my pages as well. That's another technique that you might be able to use. And as you see, quiz yourself, use the questions you created in the Q questioning phase of the SQ3R to help you. Create a work and study group or study group, and also ask your instructor for assistance if the material is so difficult that, or for clarification when you're having difficulty, okay? So in a nutshell, that is the SQ3R method, all right? Notice that the SQ3R method goes beyond simple memorization. This is not something you're gonna memorize and then forget. It's something that as you look at the material again and again, you remember they use that word periodically, from time to time, that material begins to stay. And because you're taking notes, and because you're reciting the information, and because you have formulated your own questions, you've looked at the material in so many different ways, you have a better sense and understanding that material stays with you longer. SQ3R method helps your reading process in a number of ways. It allows deep critical thinking. It helps you to respond creatively to the reading. You think beneath the surface, right? The answer isn't just A, but it's A because, and you're able to provide detailed responses, right? And it involves others in your learning. Again, family members, friends, your instructors form that study group. Right? Is there another slide after this? Next slide?
It's okay. Just the slide to say, what questions might they have? What area of the SQ3R do you think that you should, really kind of ramp up on? What is it that you don't use and you could use from what Professor Forbes has just told you? Youssef?
I don't know if this has got to do with SQ3R, but I've been doing really good with the rest of the course, that same course that she's teaching. It's just I'm struggling with creating my own topic sentences or locating topic sentences.
Okay, so the topic sentences are the main idea sentences of the various paragraphs, right? And I will say quickly that to create or find that topic sentence, most often, notice I say most often, not always, that topic sentence is at the beginning of the paragraph, most often. However, there's always a however or but, it can be found anywhere. So you're looking for that most general sentence. It has to be a general sentence. If there are a lot of details in that sentence, likely it's not the topic sentence or main idea of that paragraph. It has to be general.
Yeah, because the reason I'm asking is I'd had an assignment in class and she was like, oh, you went way too far deep and it was just supposed to be a topic sentence and these are not complete thoughts. And I was like, oh. And I just got to say, it is truly a privilege and an honor to be meeting you, Miss Professor Maureen Forbes. I was actually about to have you as a teacher this year.
Wow, what a small world. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Sorry we met the way we did, but man,
okay.
I'm just so honored right now to be meeting you finally.
Thank you.
And so are there any other comments or questions or ways you think
you may? Oh, the thesis statement. That's the thing that keeps throwing me off too.
Welcome.
Thanks for reminding me, babe.
Okay.
That thesis statement is so important, right,
yes,
Professor Forbes?
Absolutely. The thesis statement. So when you are writing or when you have to find it, if you're asked to find the thesis is going to be the point of an entire long passage. So perhaps, let's say you're reading an article or an essay that's several paragraphs or pages long. The thesis statement is the main idea of all those pages or all those paragraphs. And then the topic sentences are the main idea sentences of the individual paragraphs within that essay. So you have a huge thesis statement, right? That's the main idea of everything. And then within that, you have the topic sentences for the individual paragraphs. That would be an entire additional workshop. But I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's a.
When we do this workshop more in depth, Professor Forbes uses an example of a paragraph and we go through it. But in the hour, we thought we would concentrate on giving you the SQ3R acronym and then discussing it so that you can kind of get the gist. So a further workshop would go in depth with a paragraph where you'd be able, or a page where you'd be able to practice doing the survey, the questioning, the reading, the recite, the review. And so you could practice it. So maybe it's a future workshop. We'll ask Dr. Singletary, or we'll ask Kathy or Samara, maybe we can do a second workshop. I know that this is not one that a lot of students flock to, but again, I said this at the beginning. If you can learn this, you're really, really, really much further along in your academic career when you realize you don't have to read copious amounts. You need to ask yourself questions. Many times when I got to the second or third level of, let's say I was a freshman and now I'm a junior or senior, I asked myself questions like, how much of this textbook do I already know? Because remember that when you get into your major, things are built upon things. And so you may get away with reading a section of that because you know the rest. Then you should still recite it. You should still review it, but you don't have to read it because you already know it. So now you go to the points that you don't know first, and then you recite and review. But anyway, I don't want to eat into your game time. We want to absolutely thank Professor Forbes for giving us this quick and dirty reading workshop for you. And I hope that you took something away from it. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, everyone. My pleasure.
And I think, I'm not sure, but I think I still have her email from when I tried to sign up for the class.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to get started with the Kahoot. And so, guys, log in to, as usual, kahoot.it and put in the game pin. I'm going to put the game pin in the chat as well. And tonight I will read the questions because I know that that will help. So let me see here. Let me put the pin in the chat. And I'll say the pin. The pin is 896-2155. 896-2155. So kahoot.it 896-2155. And all the questions are going to be based on the SQ3R reading method. All right. I think, is that everybody? Ren, are you in? Okay, we'll wait on you. Don't worry. Okay. Is Renee in? Yusuf is in. Great. And what about Renee? Okay, all right. So we'll wait. I should be in. Okay. Shall we wait a little bit longer or shall we get started? Okay, so hold on. Renee says that she's getting in. Let's give Renee a chance. We can go 5-10 minutes over. It's not the end of the world. We want to give Renee a chance. Now remember, guys, the first prize is $25. It's an Amazon gift card that you must redeem within 1 week. If you don't redeem it, then you're going to forfeit it because we find that a lot of students are not redeeming the gift cards. I don't know why. $25 on Amazon is a big deal. Second prize, 20, and the third prize is 15. So, and still waiting on Renee. We'll give her a little bit more time because we want everybody to play.
What's up, Yusuf?
Huh?
I think Yusuf has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Yusuf. Open your mic.
You're muted.
Oh, I was going to say thank you so much for your guys' time and patience. Thank you so much for the workshop and everything you guys have been doing. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
I forgot to raise my hand, so I'm sorry for that in advance.
Not a problem. Did we lose the Kahoot? Are we seeing it or is it just me?
It's still there.
Okay. So for some reason, I'm not seeing it. Not a problem.
But there's one last question before we start.
Okay.
Am I able, as far as English, like in the future, to ask her any questions on like on D2L or anything?
Professor,
Are you able to ask me questions?
Yes. Because I'm in ENC 0017C, so.
Okay, so I'm actually teaching that course. So yeah, you can ask me questions from time to time, most definitely.
Okay.
Also,
Thank
keep
you.
in mind, Youssef, that there are tutors in the library who do assist.
Which I've been fully utilizing the library now.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good. All right, I think we need to get started. We're already almost at 7, so we're going to get started now. Renee, are you able to get in?
She said her signal was bad, so just go ahead and start.
All right, okay, all right. So let's get started, guys, and I'll read the question. So true or false? Reading is essential for college success. True or false? Excellent. All right. Okay. True or false? The S in SQ3R means survey or skim. Excellent. Great. Let's see who's in the lead. All right. Next question. True or false? The Q in SQ3R means quest. All right. Good. It met question, and we've got Alan. And so Alan is on fire here. True or false? The first R means read. So the first R in SQ3R means to read. Good. All right. So here we go. Question number 5. The second R in SQ3R means to revise. Good for you. What did it stand for?
Review.
Recite.
Recite. All right, next.
Oh wait, I got it mixed up. Reviews at the end.
That's fine. The third R in SQ3R is review. Excellent, guys. You're doing fine. Let's see who's in the lead.
Oh, I thought you said that was the second R. Well,
all right. Question number 7. SQ3R is an effective reading method. True or false? Yes, yes, yes. I'm glad that you saw that tonight. And question number 8. You can use SQ3R when reading ebooks. True or false? Good for you. Yay. Yes, you can do it just as well. All right. Looks like we've got the same guys are winning. And true or false, you can use SQ3R when reading textbooks. True or false? All right, excellent. And the last question, true or false? I will use SQ3R to see if it works for me. True or false? Wonderful.
Yes.
So we know who the winners are. In third place, Youssef. In second place, Ren. And in first
It's
place,
me.
Alan.
All right. Woohoo. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
I just been really, very
Yeah.
passionate about college. I really want to do well in my courses. So I'm trying to really pay attention, ask questions, period.
That is great. So before we leave, is there anyone else that would need to say anything? Anyone from a TRIO staff, or are we good to go?
You guys remember to check your D2L page and use your D2L for all updates with the TRIO program. We send out notifications at least once a week or twice a week, depends on the event. So just use your D2L page, okay?
Now, next week,
No.
we have, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know. I just saying that I will check D2L daily.
Okay, good. Now, our next workshop next week is, do you all know what it is? So we had reading for success this week. Guess what we're going to be doing next week?
I think it was like FAFSA skills or something.
That's coming up. But the next one is writing. Writing
Oh, thank
for
God.
success. So, Youssef, this should be good for you. You were talking about reading and writing. I hope that I see you
Oh,
all.
I'm not missing it.
Yep, writing for student success, and then learning preferences, which is one of my favorite. And then, of course, we're going to do the FAFSA. All right, guys, take good care. Be safe.
Davina, best speaker.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm gonna definitely clear my schedule next Thursday for this workshop.
You're going to
I'm
get
not
some
missing a
tips and
minute, a
tricks.
second, an hour.
We're going to talk about APA, but we're also going to give you some really nice tips and tricks that you can use. So make sure you come. Take
Thank
good
you,
care,
everyone. Be
guys, and
well.
let's thank Professor Forbes again, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
It's been a privilege and honor. It's been really a privilege.
Take
thank you, everybody.
care. Take care. Good night, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye, Professor. Nice meeting you.
Oh, take
Okay,
care.
Bye. Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. All right, I'm going to end the meeting now if there are no more questions.
Wait, so I have a question.
Go ahead, Alan.
How do we get the gift card?
Okay, you're going to, you look at your Broward, the email that did you put your email in here tonight?
Yes, I
Yes.
did.
So
Wow.
it's an electronic gift card, Alan. So when you go to Amazon.com and you buy something and you check out, you can use the gift card when you check out, like, you know, like a
Okay.
credit card. All right?
Well, I did put my personal email in there. Is that fine?
Yes, yes. Whatever email you put in there is the email we're going to send it to.
All right, thank you.
Take care, my dear, and have a good night.
All right, see you next week.
All right, see you next week. Elizabeth, any questions or concerns? All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, Kyle.
Alan is the only email I got.
Huh?
Alan is the only email I got.
Who were the other two?
Ren and Yosef.
Ren and Yosef. I have Yosef's from a previous, I'm sure I can find Yosef's from a previous time. So I'll get Yosef's for you. And Ren? And you don't have Ren's either?
I told him to put it in the chat.
Yeah, I should have asked. You know what? I think that when they log in, an email is attached. So I'll look at it tomorrow and I'll send you those details.
Okay. I think I figured out why my thing was freezing.
What is it?
Because I couldn't hear. I had plugged in my headphones, and as soon as I plugged in my headphones, it froze.
You know what? I find when I put my headphones in, it messes with Zoom. I can't use headphones anymore.
Yeah, I have to plug it in before you start.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Zoom, you know, I used to be able to use headphones, no problem with Zoom, but Zoom's become very finicky.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just the guest speaker, she's just I couldn't grasp where she was in the slides.
Yeah, she's good, but she tends to be like long-winded, and I knew that. I told her we only have an hour, but I knew she was going to be a little bit long-winded, but you know, we did the best that we could do, and it worked out okay, I think. So now that we're coming to the end of the workshops, I think we only have 3 more. I want to design one on customer service. And then I want to put it out there and I want you to train it. So think about what you want to put in a customer service presentation. And, you know, if you want to design a presentation for it, use the format, you know, the way that I do it in terms of having and you don't have to put in all the agenda and things like that. I can put it in. But if you want to start designing one on customer service, you know, especially in the service industry, I want to present that as a workshop that we can do, because now I want to go more to career type workshops now that we've done a lot of the skills workshops, you know? Okay. So I think that's it for tonight. Next week is Davinia's, and hers is already done and finished, and the Kahoot is already there. So we can go through that next Thursday. And then the learning preferences, that one I have to design. I do a lot with it in class, so it's not hard for me to design it, but I haven't designed the slide for the workshop yet. But I'll do that. We're 2 weeks out.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Good night.
All right, take care. I love you.
Thank you.